In this film, I'm going to be showing you how to make a flared edged ring that we can use to make spinner rings with using Durston's spinner ring flaring tool. My name's Andrew Berry and welcome to At the Bench's YouTube channel. This tool enables you to flare out the edges of a wide band, whether it be in gold or silver or brass or copper. It flares it out nice and evenly. Now, in the past, and with some other tools, you have to come along with a hammer and start bang, bang, bang and tapping it, whether you use a dapping punch or these other types of flaring tools out there. And you've got to bang, you've got to hammer, then you've got to turn the ring over, then you've got to remember how many bangs and hammers you made on the previous side to make sure that you get the flaring right on the other side. Otherwise, why bother? So why not just pick up a little flaring tool like this, and this will enable you to flare the sides of the rings in one go, nice and evenly as well. So this type of tool is so easy to use, and you can make up the spinner rings that I've got in front of me by here. You can see the sort of rings that we're looking at. Flared edges, this one is all silver, as you can see. This one's silver textured, and it's got a bit of a copper spinner on the inside, but you don't have to put these little spinners over the top. They can be simply left as sort of slightly flared edges. Now, these rings are becoming more so popular because of the amount of rolling mills that are being sold, and what you can do with the rolling mill is texture, using texture plates, using textured paper, grass, doilies, cupcake, laser cut templates, and all those sort of fancy things. And I got two little sort of texture plates here that we've sort of put some gorgeous textures on using a rolling mill. So these are brilliant. You can put textures on them, you can leave them plain. So that's just an idea. You can expand upon this. You can make up a simple plain ring. You can put some spinners in it, as I said, in silver, in gold, or in copper, in twists and beads, simple plain bands. You can hammer them, you can facet them, or then you can texture the rings inside and out and put all of these down. So the design possibilities are really completely endless. So what I'm going to be doing, I've got a bit of silver, and I'm just going to be making a simple flared ring just to show you really how easy this is to do. The flaring tool that you can buy, as I put the links down in the description down below, from Durston, it's very simply these conical edges on a simple bolt, and you put that into a vise. If you haven't got a vise, you can simply hold it with a spanner, and then you tighten the other nut here again with a spanner. And as the cones come together, they will actually flare out the edges. And this device will flare rings around from about a size, I don't know, size E to about a Z+6 here in the UK. All various widths, obviously not very thin, narrow bands because you don't get that flaring, but I've got a bit of silver here. I think this is around about 8 or 9 millimeters in width. Let me just have a quick look. So this is 8 millimeters in width, and it's 0.8 millimeters in thickness. Or the 8C, D8. So we're going to make up a band. You can use a ring blank table like we've got here. You can come down, it's 0.8, so you can come down this column, find the ring size that you want to make, come along, and you can work out what length ring you want. You could do it that way, or you can simply just wrap it around the mandrel to the size that you want. I want to make a ring that's around about a size P, and I've worked out using my table that it needs to be 59 millimeters in total length. So let's just quickly simply make up a silver band, and then I'll show you then how the tool flares the edges. So get our ruler to start off with, get my scribe, and we're going to measure 59 millimeters. Now don't forget, we're not going to necessarily measure right from the end. We're going to come in roughly around about 1 millimeter. Let's come back in a couple of millimeters in from the ends. We're going to measure to 59. I don't want to go straight to the end because it may not have been cut correctly, and I want to make sure that when I come to cut my metal, it's going to be lovely and straight, especially on these wide bands that we've got. So let's just measure 59 from there to there. I'm not going to cut it, just simply going to bend it around the mandrel. What you may want to do first of all though is just to bend the beginning part here just a little bit, just to enable, there we go. You can see how hard it is to bend right on the end because my pliers just keep slipping off. We got the blue protective paper, which I'm going to leave on for a little bit longer because I really want to protect this surface for as long as possible. Bring it along, bend it around the mandrel, and I'm not necessarily looking to make a size P ring straight away. What I'm looking for is to bend the metal around and around. Let's just do it that way so I can just bend that. So we're going to be overlapping like this. And the important thing is to make sure that the metal is starting to bend. Bring this line. You can see I've got my mark here and I got my mark here, but I'm not going to try and cut through in one go. Let's just straighten up those edges a minute, make sure that ring is nice and straight. Nice, nice, nice. I got my line. I'm going to cut through this line first of all, then I'm going to cut through my other line. I'm not going to cut it in one go. I'm going to take two separate lengths. But now remember to always keep the ring, if you're going to cut this way, keep the ring in this position. Don't go turning the ring over, because if you cut this first cut at a slight angle, or then you cut the next line at that same slight angle, the ends are going to come together beautifully like this. If you happen to turn the ring over or cut the ring on the end like this and so forth, the ends will not come in together perfectly. They'll be all over the place. You'll have gaps. And then as soon as you start to file that gap and file the high spots off, the ring is going to be getting shorter and shorter, and it's going to be going smaller and smaller. So let us get our piercing saw and let's cut this ring. I'm just going to transfer my line just to the outside so I can see it. So don't forget to keep the ring now flat on your peg, and we're going to cut through. We're missing the other piece. We're going to cut all the way through from here. Okay, so we're going to keep the ring on the block, find our line that we that we marked at the beginning, put a fingernail on it. Now don't forget, when you're piercing, don't start to saw straight away. Go at a slight angle on the edge and just go forward a couple of goes upwards, okay? I know the saw cuts on the downward stroke, but by going upwards like this, you can start the cut far easier, and then when you come to the vertical position, it's going to make life so much easier. Like that, save you a little bit in the tray, and now we can take off the plastic. Some of the silver that you buy may not have this little protective wrapping over it. If it doesn't, just take good care with the surface of the silver. That will come off like that, and now what you should be able to do is put those ends together of the ring. And those ends now will come together perfectly, exactly where they should. As you can see, the ends come together and they're looking pretty good. Bit of a gap at the moment. Let's just close up that gap a little bit. And it is important now when it comes to making these flared rings that when the joint comes together, and there's the ends come and they're not overlapping. So when you come to solder, the surface should be nice and continuous all the way around, because if one surface is above the other and you come to file it, you're making the metal thinner. And if you make the metal thinner, no matter what tool you use to flare the rings, it'll always stretch on the thinner section. So let's get this together nice and tight. As you can see, we haven't done anything else to this. The metal is coming together. That one's just a little bit higher. Bend that one down a little bit. So as you can see, the joint now has come together in the most perfect way. There's no gap between there as well. We don't have to put a file through it. We don't have to saw through it or anything like that. What we do need to do though is just to get a small little bit of emery paper just to clean up the surface as well on the outside and on the inside, just to ensure that we get the most perfect solder joint. Or you can use a small little needle file just to get in there to clean up exactly where that joint is. Once you've done that, get a little flux. I always use some borax for this. Open up the joint, make sure that the flux travels all the way through. It should go through with capillary action, but always just help it through. Inside, outside. Looking good. Let's put that onto our soldering block. Just pop that into place. Now it is important to use a hard solder for this because it's the strongest solder you've got, whether you're doing this in silver or whether you do it in gold, or even if you're making this up in brass. A hard solder is going to be the best solder to use. You need to make sure that this joint is going to be nice and strong. So don't really skimp with the solder. Perhaps have a little bit more solder than what you would normally do. Put a bit of flux on that. I'm just going to put that little bit of solder underneath the joint itself, just so you can see it from the camera, just like that. Now we can heat up the ring. And because the ring is not under a lot of stress or tension, we can warm this up, and as soon as that joint then gets to the correct temperature, the solder will melt. And despite what a lot of people say, the solder does like gravity, but it also loves two faces that are lovely and close. So the solder will actually flow up this joint. Any second now. There we go. Perfect. You can see the solder flew upwards. Now don't forget, gravity pulls the solder down, but if you've got a most beautiful joint, you can be sure that that solder will flow upwards. And also, if the solder flows towards the heat, I'm going to bring the flame to the outside just to make sure the solder gets pulled out to the outside. Absolutely fabulous. Wait for that to cool a little bit. You quench that too quickly into the acid or into the water, and you're going to find that it's going to split. It may crack. You may not be aware there's a slight crack of it, but then as soon as you start to flare it, it will actually split. So we're going to wait for that to cool down a little bit, and then we're going to pop that into our acid just to get all those oxides off. There we go. So there's the ring, nice and clean. All the oxides have been taken off. Now, if you are you wanted this ring patterned, but then obviously you would pattern that piece of metal before you make it up into the ring. So that would be nicely patterned now. Now what we need to do is just to tidy up this joint. We're not going to remove any metal from the inside just yet. You can see we've got that little bit of solder on the inside. We want to remove the metal just from the outside here. We want to try and keep this thickness that we've got across the joint as uniform as possible. So I don't want to do an awful lot of filing, because again, as I mentioned just now, if we remove too much metal in one particular spot, it'll flare, it'll bend, it'll stretch far too easy. And if we were making a spinner rings, well, then it'd be beneficial to remove the solder on the outside and clean up that joint before we went any further. If you are making up a spinner ring, do that now. If you aren't necessarily making up a spinner ring and just purely want to make it a flared ring, well, then you don't really have to clean it off just yet. But I'm going to just remove that little bit of solder that's on the outside, and I got a needle file for that. Just going to go over just that little area. It's not going to take an awful lot. That's all it's going to need. Then we're going to get a buff stick just to buff over that joint. Like that. gorgeous. And when you are buffing, don't forget to buff. Don't buff straight, buff in the direction of the ring. Then what I would also suggest you do is just buff the edges as well, just where you've soldered, because if there is a little dip on the edge where the solder has been, or there's a slight little gap on the very edge, again, as soon as you start to stretch it, it is going to stretch where that little dip is, where that little weakness is. So make sure that you buff the edges as well, and make sure you get a nice even thickness. There's no dip or anything like that. If you want to clean up the rest of the ring, you can do. If you want to leave it matte, you can do, or just go over the whole thing with a buff stick and then get yourself some polish. I'm going to simply be using a white nylon brush, and we can go over the whole ring with that now. Let's use a bit of Tripoli on that, and I'm going to go over the outside of the band. I'm not worrying about the inside just yet. We're going to come to that a little bit later. So as you can see, it's not going to take an awful lot, because the silver that we had was looking pretty good beforehand. Let's just gently go over the outside, bring a little bit of a shine. Now, it would be important for you to do this if you were making a simple spinner ring, because it's going to be very difficult to polish beneath the spinner rings. So getting a nice pre-polish on the ring, first of all, is the most important thing to do, because if you have the rings, as I just said, the spinners that go on the outside, and I've got a couple of bands here. I've got like a copper band, and I've also got a nice beaded band. And if I was actually making it into a spinner ring, it is important to polish now, not afterwards, because you can imagine when that goes on, the edges are flared. You're not going to be able to get underneath to polish. So thinking ahead, polish now, because you won't be able to polish afterwards. Initially now, this is going to be all that we're going to do. If you want to go on the outside edge, you can do, but I wouldn't go too mad at polishing the outside edge just yet. You don't want to take away anything from this outside edge at all. Really simple preliminary polish. These white nylon brushes are absolutely amazing and so simple for this type of polishing. Just like that. I'm not going to go any further with that. If you were just simply making a flared ring, and I wouldn't worry about polishing that, but if you are making those spinners and want to put these bands on, well then make sure that it is polished beforehand. All right, so now we are ready now to use the spinner ring flaring tool. Let's get this open, take the bolts off, put the ring on, put that cone on in place like that, and you can see now exactly how this is going to work. Okay, you can see how this is now going to flare. The sides are lovely and smooth. The metal is going to be flared out nice and easy. I'm going to put this into my little vise I got by the side of me, and I've got a spanner. I'm going to turn this end here. But as I said, if you don't happen to have a vise, you can simply put a spanner onto this side and a spanner onto this side and simply twist in opposite directions. So let's just pop this in the vise a moment. Pop that head of the bolt into the vise. You can do this vertically this way, or you can do this horizontally. It really does not matter, whichever way you want to do it. Then get your spanner or adjustable spanner, whatever, and now you need to tighten this bolt. As you start to tighten this bolt, it's going to pull the two cones together, thus flaring this ring in the middle nice and evenly, and all the way around as well at both sides, so we can get a nice gentle curve coming on. You can just see a little bit of a gentle curve coming into place. You can stop, you can carry on, you can go as far as you want. And because we haven't thinned out that metal by filing it on the inside, you should find that it will flare nice and evenly. So you've got a little bit of a gentle flare coming on that. Let's have a quick look at that. You can loosen it, have a look, see how it's going. Yep, you've got a nice gentle flare starting to come on that. Let's tighten that up and let's twist that a little bit more. As you can see, we got that gorgeous, gorgeous curve coming. And I'm happy with that. I'm going to keep it at that. Okay, now we can go back onto the bench and now we can start to, you see you've got that gorgeous, gorgeous curve. Now we can go back onto the bench and start to clean up the inside of the ring and also polish up the outside. And now we've got that nice, gorgeous, even flare all the way around. It's now time to just to clean up the insides. What you'll find is, let's get some round buff sticks, here we go. That the inside is pretty smooth because it's been obviously being rubbed and pushed up against the spinner tool. So let's just go over very quickly, take out some of that solder. This is where the solder was when we originally soldered it. Let's just take that out. I've got a round buff stick we can use. And then once that is out, a little bit more there, we can come along now again with the white nylon bristle brush. And we can start to clean up the insides with this. Again, removing all the scratches that may be on the inside, just tidying up that solder joint. So we need to go over the inside with that. And then obviously then on the outside where we've got that lovely sort of concave look, we can use the mop. Mop's going to get in there really, really nicely, and we can give that a nice good clean as well. As you can see, it's got that fantastic shine about it already. If you want to do the outsides, just put that mop on the outsides just to smooth everything off, and literally within a few more minutes going to have this ring all lovely and cleaned. So as I said, this is a bit of a triply polish. And once we've gone over that, this is a pre-polish. The inside is going to be a lovely, lovely and smooth. Once you've gone over with the triply, getting all the little scratches out that you can see, then put it in some warm soapy water, give it a good clean. Once it's nice and clean, come along with a bit of rouge and a nice soft woolen mop like this, and you can finish off the ring to a really nice high shine. So give me 2 minutes, let me finish this ring off. So we've got a nice high shine on the ring now, and as you can see, the inside nicely polished and the outside with that gorgeous, gorgeous flared look. So that is a nice, easy, simple ring to make up. As I said, you can keep it that way, or before we put it up onto the spinner ring flairer, we could have also put on these couple of spinners to have done what we have got here, and that would have been to have made up these fabulous spinner rings. So as you can see, we've been having a lot of fun putting these different types of rings together. So those are the spinner rings, and also this one is the flared ring, as you can see. So all in all, it's a really, really good tool. It enables you to get the flares nice and even, and by putting the little spinners in the center, it really does make almost like a fidget ring, a stress relief ring, a spinner ring. As I said earlier, if you wanted to put the pattern on, you would put the pattern on first of all, then you would bend it round and solder it into place and carry on that way. So as you can see, I've been having a lot of fun with this. The link is down below if you want to go and buy your own Durston's spinner ring flairer. Don't forget, please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Don't forget, smash the little bell icon on the end there to be notified when films go live on our YouTube channel. Don't forget, please give this film a thumbs up if you like, and please share it with your friends. I'd absolutely love you to. But in the meantime, my name's Andrew Berry for At The Benches YouTube channel. Take care. See you next time. Bye-bye.